All right, welcome in everybody. We are going to get started in 1 minute. I know we're a little bit late and we're super excited and we want to maximize the time, so we're going to jump right into it. So come on in, get settled in, grab your coffee, grab your notebook. I've got mine right here. I don't know if you can see it. Um,
What is that, a
and my
virtual notebook? That's hilarious.
no, I can't get it on the camera because it's got the virtual
So
background.
funny.
Um, Okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and jump into it. We've already got 70 people live. I think we're expecting a lot more, so we'll let people flow in as we get started here. So welcome to another awesome webinar masterclass from Baselane. I am very, very excited today because we're introducing and talking to Zach. Zach and I met a couple of months ago in Arizona at a mastermind called the Growth House, and I'm gonna read his profile, but it's such a friendly and generous person. I want to thank him for his time before I even get started. Zachary Kepes, he is a nine-figure real estate investor, educator, and the largest private single-family home investor in Arizona. And I've seen it myself, and you can watch him on Instagram do it daily with a portfolio of over 300 properties. He's done over 4,000 deals across 20 years of real estate experience. He has built all of this from scratch, self-managing hundreds of properties by himself, flipping thousands of homes. He's also the star of an HGTV show that some of you may have caught, Trash to Treasure, and the founder of Fliplift, a coaching community where he teaches everyday investors how to scale smarter, avoid costly mistakes, which a lot of us, including myself, have made a lot of those, and turn real estate into the real freedom that we all want, the independent, early retirement, passive income legacy for our families. So, Zach, welcome to Baselane, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was great meeting you and your team out in Arizona, which is awesome. Love your energy, love your product. So as soon as you asked me, hey, would I hop on? It's my pleasure. I love supporting great company, great culture, and of course, an amazing product. So honored and grateful to be here.
Thank you so much. And I just have to say, Zach is so relatable. I don't, and I don't know why I want to say that again, but he is just the everyday guy, and it's so easy to talk to when we met in person. So I think you guys are gonna learn a lot today. So just hang in there. I'm gonna do my best to ask as many questions as I can on your behalf. And then just in case you're wondering what you're gonna be getting out of this thing today, let me just pull up our deck here and use that to help outline here. And I think I hit the window, so give me 1 second. Sorry. Uh,
While you're doing that, I'm just going to say, man, where have you been for 23 years? I mean, I started 23 years ago, and to have met you just a couple months ago, I needed you 20 years ago. I don't know where I would have been. I mean, I'm grateful and blessed to have gotten to this point, but dang, I wish you would have had this earlier, but better late than never.
yeah, no, we we do the same too. Can you guys see my screen or no? I feel like my screen is not being shared. Let's see. Are you able to see the deck?
No, it says you started sharing, but
But
double.
it's not sharing anything. Yeah. Something's going on with this. Give me a second here. I'm gonna pull it into this side. Sorry about that, folks. A little bit of a hiccup here. All right, let's try it now. Okay, there we go. Awesome. So, yeah, we've introduced Zach, and we're super excited to have him here. What you're going to be learning about today, we did the introduction. We'll talk a little bit about Zach's background, how he got started, what it was like for him in the early days, how he unlocked his scale, um, by talking about why landlords get stuck at 5 to 10 properties. We'll talk about self-management and how that can be an advantage to you, also Zach's blueprint, and we're actually going to do a live deal analysis. This was a special request. It's the first time that we're doing this on Baselane, and I've actually something I wanted Zach to help me with, and so I'm kind of like very, very excited and curious about how he does deal analysis. I've been watching your Instagram, so I think I've started to get a little bit of it, but looking
I
forward to
really don't
learning.
put it out on the Insta. I mean, I talk about when I'm at a deal sometimes, or hey, this is kind of why I bought it, but I'll really
Yeah,
break down and I'm happy to serve your community consultatively. Like, Hey, why did you choose this one? How did you make a decision in 2 minutes? Why do you only
Right.
invest locally? We'll get into it, but yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And how to get started, right? So all of that said, what about now? What do we do? If you have 5 properties, 10 properties, 2 properties, what should you be doing to get going here? And we'll open up a Q&A. And I want to just say we're going to actually announce a special giveaway sort of bonus thing that is going to be at the end. So stay tuned for the very end, and we'll be sharing that with you in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes of this presentation. So that's pretty much, that. If you are not familiar with Baselane, Baselane is an all-in-one banking and finance platform built for real estate investors in the US. And really, our goal is to help you achieve your mission, help you thrive by offering you the right organization, the automation, the technology you need to bank, bookkeep, get your reporting, do your online rent collection, manage your tenants well, and all of those things all in one. And that's what Basin's all about. So stay tuned to learn more about that as we talk through this with Zach. And so I'm going to just go ahead and jump into my questions, and we'll come back to this deal analysis page right there. So yeah, now it's just Zach and me. So Zach, I think my first question, I was thinking about it this morning as I was flying to LA this morning. What should I ask you first? And actually, my first question is like, how did you get into real estate? Why did you get into real estate?
Great question. So, I went to business school, College School of Business at Indiana. I thought maybe I was going to have an insurance company or be a financial advisor. I loved stocks as a kid. And I had some internships on Wall Street where I realized it's the institutions that are making all the moves and the money. And, I don't like anyone telling me what to do. And so by default, and I'm looking at the Forbes list of the most, wealthiest people in the world, and the commonality amongst 90%, and everyone can do their own research and due diligence, is they're all somehow affiliated in real estate, whether active or passively in funds, or again, they just own a bunch of it themselves, whether it's land or houses or commercial. So by default, I'm, evaluating all the different career opportunities. And I love the fact that I'm a control freak, which again, why I'm vertically integrated. I love to make money. I love deals. And it really just embodied all the attributes and characteristics that are just truly a part of me. I like the leverage aspect, cross collateralization. I like dealing with people. I'm a deal junkie. It's in the DNA. So when I stepped back and talked about what are my attributes, what is the future, which is unlimited, when you're doing any sort of investments. And of course, people like autonomy. People want to do what they want when they want. The ultimate freedom is, owning real estate, creating passive income so you could do what you want when you want. And therefore, by
Yeah,
default, here we are today.
I love that. So, we met you as the guy that owns 300 properties and more, and you've done thousands of flips. What I'm really curious about is I want to take you back on a little bit of a journey because, when we talk about our first question that we had framed up for this conversation, which is why do most landlords get stuck, at 5 properties or 10 properties? And that's a stat, by the way. That's not a made up number. That is a
Yeah,
fact. In the US, more than 90% of landlords do not own more than 4 properties. That's just a fact, right?
sure.
So if you want to scale, if you want to get to 10, 20, 30, 40 doors, you're an anomaly. You are not the norm, right? And so a lot of us here actually, and I'm waiting for the poll survey. So let's see what we get back in terms of what people own. I'll share that. My kind of first kind of understanding is like what I want to get from you is like, how was it like for you in the early days when you got started? Did you have a lot of money? Did you know what you were doing? Right? Did you have a clear vision of your strategy, for example, when you started?
Great question. The answer is no. I came from it. People just assume, oh, I bought a portfolio, or I came from an extremely wealthy family, or I'm a trust fund baby, or, I've seen and heard it all. But the reality is maybe I had $50,000 at 22 years old. And what I was lucky and blessed is that I had some cousins that were in the business in the Midwest that I was the human capital, meaning I did all the work. I moved
Mm,
to Arizona, didn't know anybody, and put myself out there. I got my real estate license in 9 days, which I'm a huge fan of. Again, vertical integration, having all the
wow.
tools in the tool belt, and then started studying the local market to become an expert. Bought my first flip within the first 30 days. So I used OPM, right? Other people's money. When you talk about why people are stuck at 4 or 5, they're stuck for multiple reasons. One, they're buying, poor deals where there's no equity. They don't have ability to refinance and utilize that equity and that liquidity for future deals. Lack of deal flow. They don't have a lot of good relationships and opportunities, or they don't have good marketing strategy to create new opportunities directly to sellers. And bankability, right? What you're going to learn today is about delayed gratification, playing the long game, paying the taxes. You got to pay to play, which is my methodology. Why I'm different than most people. People are always talking about, hey, I don't pay taxes. I write everything off. Well, you're playing the sprint game when real estate is really about playing the long game, the delayed gratification game, leveraging the technology and resources to grow incrementally. My business people
Mm.
look at me and they say, I want to be, 300 plus properties. I said, well, good. Delegate, 20 to 30 years and you too can get there. So the reality is I built my portfolio one home at a time, one relationship, one brick at a time, effectively, one handshake. I'm a belly to belly guy. And this
Right.
business is made in the field, not in the office. And by leveraging a Baselane type technology, it enables you to get out of the field literally and go out and shake hands, go belly to belly with people, meeting bankers, going to escrow companies, hosting events, doing hikes, getting yourself out there to differentiate yourself, being top of mind mentality to procure your
Right.
new deal or meet somebody that wants to invest in you as your own OPM to grow and scale. So there's no reason why you can't continue to grow. The restrictions are internally saying, you have a lack of abundance mindset. There's a tons of opportunities out there in terms of deal flow, and there's tons of people that want to leverage you as a human capital, as the investor, to invest with you on future deals. So there's no reason. Let's eliminate that myth of, hey, I'm stuck. Or you're buying
Yeah.
poorly, where again you can't refinance that portfolio to leverage into new deals.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot in there, and I'll slowly kind of unpack this. But maybe I'll do it by asking you a follow-up question. And I think we talked a little bit about this, is like, if I take you back to the time where you had done, your first five rentals or your first 10 rentals, what did things look like for you back then? And how were you thinking about, like, were you thinking about the scale, or were you just thinking like, I got to do my next deal? And before I get there, we've got the pullback. So in the audience, you have about 10% of people who have zero properties. They're just starting out. We've got about 60% here that are 1 to 3, 20% that are 4 to 10 properties, and about 15% that are 11 plus. So it's a healthy mix of people that are just starting, some
Sure.
that have experience. Mostly you see the volume is in the 1 to 3 where people are, that's also the market stats, right, from the census survey. In
Yeah.
terms of strategies, they're doing midterm and long term mostly, 86%. About a quarter of them are doing short term rentals. Some are doing fix and flips, about 10%. Um, and so that's a strategy. And the plans, everybody has plans to grow, which is awesome. Pretty much everybody wants to acquire a couple of things. So that's helpful. And then in terms of bookkeeping, people are collecting rent online, 86%. Good job. That's awesome. That's the first time I've seen such a healthy survey, and only 4% collecting checks. So nice job there. And then how do you currently do your bookkeeping? It's a mix, 55% Baselane. Awesome. Nice job there. And then 20% are in spreadsheets, 13% in accounting software like QuickBooks, 8% in bookkeeping or bookkeeper or accountant, and 4% just don't do it. Um, what's the biggest pain point holding you back from growing your portfolio? Too much and manual admin. More than 25% of people said that. Too much manual admin.
Yep.
Analyzing deals and knowing when to buy. 54% are saying that's holding them back. I don't have the right tools to set up the scale. 30% are saying that. 23% are saying property management fees and capacity is limiting them. And then 30% are saying they're overspending on renovations and repairs. So that's interesting. I guess we'll kind of work that in. Okay, so that's just to give you a flavor of, who's in the audience, some of the things that they're doing out there. But I want to go back to my question. Like, when you had your first, let's say, 10 deals done, what was your mindset at that point? Like, were you trying to get to 300 properties, or did you have like a financial goal in mind that you were trying to hit? Like, what were you working on at that
So
time?
I'll tell you something about mindset. It's an interesting question. I remember flying out on America West, which was the airline that took me out here, flight number 5. I remember on August 5th in 2002. I'm a numbers guy, I remember everything. And I wrote down, I'm going to Arizona. I'm by myself. I know nobody. I write in a journal. I want to become a millionaire. All I cared about was I'm going to go make some money. I'm going to go grind, right? Today we're talking about less grind and more growth. And my mentality is coming from Detroit is I'm going to grind every single day. I'm going to do what I need to do. I have blinders on. I'm going to get my license. I'm going to learn this business. I'm going to go out in the field. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to get out there and build strategic relationships. I had a different mindset early on in my early 20s where I thought that the business was a zero sum game, meaning that there's a winner and a loser. If I'm buying a deal, I'm getting a great deal, I'm making, good money, and the person who sold it's going to lose or someone's losing something. It's a terrible mindset. What I realize now and today I want to share with everybody is It's an abundance mindset. It's completely different, meaning that on every deal, you want to structure a deal so it's a win-win-win. I'm buying a deal, I'm solving a problem, the agent's getting paid, a wholesaler's getting money, solving the seller's problem, providing an amazing home for a deserving family. That's how you want to look at the mindset is every deal, how can we strategically create opportunity so everybody wins? And that's the beauty of this business. That's why I love real estate is everybody can win on every transaction. So it's important to really have that good mindset coming into it. Additionally, early on, I was mostly buying and flipping to stack cash because remember, I only had 50 grand. So how are you growing a rental portfolio? And I didn't know to hold. All I knew is fix and flip. That's kind of what the
Flip.
cousins mentality was. So what I did early on was I'm taking all my profits to fix and flip to then eventually buy my first rental. And then I own that first rental, which I remember, 1701 West Tucky Lane. I bought two Section 8, two condos for 60,000 total, 30,000 a pop. And I'm like, wow, this is great. I'm getting $800 a month. This is great. On each one, 1,600. Amazing cap rate at the time was like a 25 or 26 cash on cash return. I was excited.
Wow.
I'm liking that mailbox money. But again, I want to make that $1 million, and that seems so far away from getting, $1,600 a month. But I kept flipping and flipping, and our market imploded. And and all of a sudden, I started. But when people are greedy, be fearful. When people are fearful, be greedy. Warren Buffett says it. And
Yep.
so when our market imploded, and I only buy, by the way, for people watching in Arizona, because I want to be a local expert. I want to be so intimately familiar with what's going on so that I make the correct decisions. If you're buying out of state, there's different pockets, different areas. Other people are giving you mixed data, and their only vested interest is for them to make money, kind of like property managers, right? They don't care
Right.
what's really going on with your stuff as long as they're getting their monthly fee. So for me, I just want to be hyper focused. I look back, I raised a bunch of money. When our market imploded, I started buying very heavy from the money I made flipping. I was very conservative. I never got over levered. I never lost money on deals. And so when I penetrated the market in '09 heavy, when I raised a distressed asset fund, pretty much, we started flipping and hedge funds came in and I sold off portfolios to hedge funds and took that profitability. And I'm watching the market regrow, right? I was buying homes for 30,000, selling them for 80 and buying them for 50 and 100. And the problem was I'm selling all these deals, we're making a lot of money, month after month, and I'm reinvesting. It's a real live game of monopoly of what we're playing here,
Right.
legitimately, when I think about this whole business. And it's fun and it's fast paced and you got to be quick on your toes and very decisive. And so when I started buying all these deals, and you look back, hindsight 2020, you start seeing the appreciation. I'm like, wow, every deal that I bought at 30 and sold at 80, and then these
It went up.
50s for 100, they went up. I'm like, why am I selling these? That was the realization that, you can get rich flipping, but you can get wealthy holding. And it's a game of delayed
Mm.
gratification. And that's when my shift changed really. I mean, so I've been in this game 23 years. The real hold strategy started in about 2010. And banks, remember, they were fearful of real estate. When banks don't like something, they're not investing. And I went to Bank of
Right.
America, I went to all the local banks and said, can I get some leverage? They said, we're not interested in single family real estate. They all lost a lot of money, so they were fearful. So I had to pay cash, and markets were depressed. But the beauty was I held those low income assets and they've appreciated. Those $30,000 homes today in Arizona are $400,000, for example, or
Wow.
350. And so you ride that wave strategically. And I remember finally a bank said, Zach, I see you own these homes free and clear. Would you like a line of credit? And I said,
Mm.
where have you been? Just like Baselane. Where have you been? I could have used you. Have you? But everything happens for a reason. Let's not get ahead of our britches.
Right.
And so I was blessed that they came to me to now leverage up my existing unencumbered real estate to do a cross collateralization loan to continue to grow and scale. I stabilized, I had good tenants, I had good records. But again, this was all doing, single-handed bookkeeping and QuickBooks and all of that, which was so monotonous and,
Right. Right.
rough.
Yeah, I want to kind of ask a couple of questions here. So when you were flipping, I guess, and it sounds like you did a lot of flips. Um, you've got great construction experience by that point by doing all these flips. Um, you said you started renting actually way later, closer to 2010,
Yep.
after the market crash and doing all these flips. Um, how much cash did you have at that point when you were like, okay, now I'm going to start do rentals? Or did you kind of just start slowly, setting aside money and buying rentals as you went from there?
So yeah, again, just like the game of Monopoly, you collect money, you take that money you collect, you buy some more railroads. It's the same thing. It's literally like a microcosm of what my business strategy is. Even for a long time, I used a lot of OPM, with strategic bank leverage. So it's always important. Like you never want to miss a great opportunity and you don't want to be greedy. Greed kills. So I was blessed that as I'm, marketing on my business, I would always reach out to high net worth investors, which people need to do. Is they're marketing,
Hmm.
hey, I'm looking to buy a 3-2 in this area. They also want to understand what is their liquidity? At what point are they going to run out of money? And then find a strategic partner or partners that you can joint
Right.
venture with, whether you're paying. And there's so many different, I could talk for hours on raising OPM. We could do another podcast or whatnot. But the point is, there's so many different ways to structure a deal. And it's really important to understand that finding an accredited investor that's on the same time horizon and risk factor and ability to play the long game with you is critical. Whether you're going to do an equity split, which I did 50-50, so whatever monies I made by flipping these houses, they got 50% and I got 50, or you're going to pay
Right.
them a preferred return on their money, whether it's 6% with some sort of equity kicker, 10 or 20 or 30. There's a million ways to structure, and that's a whole separate conversation. But it's so
Yeah.
important to find the appropriate people that want to play the game with you, right? When you're marketing yourself, you want to have fun. It's not just about, hey, I want your money, let's go make money. Hey, what type of experience are you looking for? What is your expectation? And every investor, and trust me, I've flown around the country to Canada and all of North America and everywhere, and I've met a lot of high net worth individuals. And I can tell you one thing's for certain: we all have different DNA, right? If you take your fingerprint, everyone's different. Same thing in capital expectation of, you never just say, I'm offering whatever. Wrong. You want to be
Right. Right.
consultative, just like what we're doing today when you poll the audience. We don't want to give people something that they're not asking for. It's the same thing in capital raising. What are you looking Saad, what are you looking to, what type of return are you looking for? What's your time horizon? What's your risk perspective? Do you want to do, $1 million flips, or you just want to do a 200,000 or 300? By the way, do you want to participate in the flip and help design, or do you just want to get your return? There's so many questions
Yeah.
consultatively that you need to engage people, and that's critical.
Yeah, I think we may do a separate deep dive on this whole conversation. I
Sure.
wanted to talk a little bit about this to give exposure to the audience
Yeah.
because I just want you to understand like a lot of you are going to hit this wall of I don't have enough capital, I don't have enough deal flow. I think what Zach is sharing in terms of using other people's money, OPM, but also don't be greedy, have the abundance mindset. It's really important because this is the sort of foundation layer for the scale that we're going to be talking about. Now, the second topic is how do you do self-management and is that scalable?
Yeah.
I think there's definitely different views on hiring a property manager doing it yourself, right? Like I know you've done a bunch of construction work, so you had that experience. But why did you decide to do self-management? And what was like before we get into what you did, what were you buying in terms of the asset that you were managing? I'd like to learn a little bit more about that too.
Yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation. I remember walking to Bank of America before, and this guy was bragging that he owned 5 houses, but the homes were worth $1 million. And I asked him, "What do you rent those out for?" And he was like, "Oh, I get $5,000 per home, so he's making 25, 30,000 a month." I'm like, "Wow, that's impressive." And I have a 50 rent checks. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm depositing on my 50 homes." I was always a low income guy because I particularly see there's an inverse relationship between price and yield. So I've always been hyper focused on the affordable marketplace. That's what works. I'm getting a higher yield on my sub $400,000 ARV, adjusted retail value pricing, or retail pricing, if you will. So I like buying homes for 300, 350,000, and I rent them out in today's market, right? We're talking about today, for 2,000 to 2,500. I won't buy a deal unless I can make 8 to 10% cash on cash unlevered returns. A lot of people get stuck when they're deploying, leverage, and they're focusing on, oh, I'm only putting down 10%, so I'm making 40%. They're skewing these numbers. They're trying to create in their mind this valuation and this yield and return, but they're taking on so much risk by arbitraging bank money. I think you want to simplify this whole thing, and that's what I've done from the start. Very simple, cash on cash returns. If you buy a $300,000 house, you rent it out for 2,500. Of course, this is a gross return. There's your
Right.
10% cash on cash. So when I
Got
buy,
it.
to make it very simple, I need a good cash on cash return. I need good equity after stabilization, which we'll talk about rehabs and making appropriate decisions. And that's why I've done what I've done. That's what I've learned. That's what pays the bills at the end of the day. That's what
Right.
passive income is
Got
all
it.
about. Yeah.
That's super helpful. That's your buy box, and you're only mostly focused on, is it all single family or do you do other multifamily as
I
well or
have
just single
no,
family?
I've bought an apartment complex before, but again, that was Not, I mean, I made a few dollars on it, but not for the risk. It was a 62 unit complex in Phoenix. But my
Okay,
core competency, I've never been distracted, is single family homes and little condos here and there. But I love the single family space, typically 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 car garage. Ideally, no solar, ideally, no pool. Some of my portfolio has both.
got it.
Because for simplicity and liability, again, playing the long game, you always want to be contingency planning. A kid falls in a pool. The solar is just a major headache. I have not seen any returns on any of that stuff. Yeah,
Understood. Okay. I'm gonna skip the first question we had about property management, just get to the second one, which is, in terms of property management versus self-management, most investors, we've seen folks that are kind of have that grind mentality, thinking that self-management means doing everything yourself. What's your philosophy, and what do you mean when you say self-management,
sure.
basically?
Self-managing means I'm not outsourcing to a third party. Unfortunately, and take it for what it's worth, I don't trust a lot of people. More hands in the cookie jar, less profitability. Everybody's typically out for the most part for themselves. If I was paying a property manager today, I'd probably spend a third of $1 million on my portfolio. When I keep that in-house and I'm very strategic in what I'm doing, I have an assistant that makes roughly $100,000. Okay. So yes, there's a cost to that. But the primary reason why I do it, and you're not seeing, is the intangibles. It's the amazing relationships and retention and referrals of tenants. Property management companies are never really invited over for dinners, right? I say, joke around, I say, hey, has property managers or hedge funds been invited for Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah, any of that? No. Have I been invited to, a large majority of my tenants' houses for birthdays and fiestas and quinceañeras and all of it? Yes. The reason why I do it is to leverage the relationships and really serve the people I'm working with. My whole philosophy is treat people like family, not like an annuity of income. And by being able to utilize a Baselane technology or like technology, it enables you to free up your time so you can be present and solve problems and
Mm.
help your tenants grow. One of the biggest takeaways, and I'll just drop it right now so people are not waiting for it, is
Yeah,
again, if you're treating people like family, when I'm meeting my tenants, and I meet them all, by the way, whether it be FaceTime or ideally in person, because I like the belly to belly relationships. Management companies aren't doing that. They're just looking at, hey, did they meet the qualifications? What your FICO score? There's no
right.
flexibility. It takes them longer to rent the homes, and we can be flexible and adapting to the people. Is, hey, I say, welcome to the Zak Ventures family. I'm here to serve you, treat you like family. I want to know everything about your family. So not only are you going to have an amazing renting experience, but I can serve your family. Oh, you're a carpenter? I'm going to refer you. I'm going to post on Instagram. You guys can go and see this live. I wanted to make
Mm.
sure that that family is successful monetarily, emotionally, and everything in between so that they have an amazing experience and have a high rate of retention. I truly treat them like family. I also give them opportunities to buy the home. When you're giving these families an opportunity, say, hey, you're renting right now. Hopefully in the future, if you love it, reach out to me. We could talk about you owning this one day. There's a greater likelihood of them taking care of that asset class, and hopefully
Yeah,
maybe they do buy it in the future, and that's great because remember, an abundance of opportunities. If you sell that, you made the money, amazing. Redeploy that dollar cost average into the market, which I've done time and time again. And that's how I've created a lot of equities, dollar cost averaging. And when you
yeah,
do that, success prevails. Management companies don't have those relationships. They're like, what's your number? I'll send a maintenance person. Or you're going to be late for rent. How do we work out to mitigate me evicting you? Because an eviction is very expensive, not from the monetary cost of evicting, $600, $700, but the delay of income, the turnaround, the paint, the carpet, the transition, the remarketing, the recommissions. If I can work out and we have an amazing direct relationship because I
yeah,
freed up my time to develop that and treat you like family, let's do a payment structure. Management companies typically won't do that and they don't trust them. So the key is creating trust, that familial dynamic for high rate of retention. I say this, my sister works for Yelp, and I like to use this analogy. I want to provide a 5-star experience. I want to give you a 5-star home. I want to give you 5-star service. I want the referral so your friends come and visit my restaurant or rent my properties. And I want you to be excited about coming back. That's what this business is about.
yeah. I love that. I think you use the word relationship and family like 10 times each in the last like 15 minutes.
But that's but
And that
for a reason.
that says everything. And I was listening to the CEO of Chick-fil-A, as well as one of the big hotels, Ritz Carlton, at a conference a couple of months ago. And they said the same thing. Very similar. Like building trust requires treating people with respect
Hmm.
and then really caring about them. But what you're doing, and I know that in the questions and stuff, the comments, people are expecting a different answer here. Like, what are the numbers? Is it profitable? And da da da. Slow down. Like this is we'll get to that, but really the mental attitude you take to your business is more important. I think what Zach is saying here is more about caring about your tenant. Think about if you're a tenant, what are you going to be doing? How do you want to feel? I was a tenant recently because I moved out of into Atlanta, and I was renting after like 15 years, and man, I
Yeah,
hated it. I hated it. The property management treated me like shit,
exactly.
and I hadn't rented because I was buying my house and I was waiting to renovate it. And I was like, I'm never treating my tenants like this at all. Right. So I
Yeah.
think we need to really remember this lesson about developing relationships belly to belly, like handshaking with your tenants, knowing their families, trying to help them with other things they need help with. And I guess, Zach, like, how
One
does that
more, if I
yeah,
interject, and
yeah,
being so two things. Number one, being very consultative, and also proactive in renting. Typically, management companies, they won't even start renting the home and they say, okay, when it's done, send me the pictures and then I'll start marketing. Wrong. I want to be proactive mentality versus reactive. And how can you do that? Freeing up your time. I'm in the field. I'm so intimately familiar with the product and what we're going to provide. I already have vision boards from my designer that she'll give me that I can project out to, Facebook Marketplace, to Zillow, to all my other tenants. Here's what the home's going to look like. I'm already getting pre-apps. My goal, by the way, is to have that home rented by the time I'm done. So by the time we get certificate of occupancy or we finish, get that deep clean, I already have an application in hand. It's already pre-rented, earnest money ready to go because time
yeah,
is money and vacancy is expensive. And number two, I want to tell people, here's a home. If you're interested in renting, this is a unique strategy as well, and hopefully you guys will employ this strategy. Being consultative. Oh, you've got a special needs kid? No problem. Do you need me to make this handicap accessible for your
right,
son? Tell me a property management company that's doing it. I'll wait. Or tell me someone else that's employing that strategy. Or your daughter's being born. Would you like me to paint the room pink? And by the way, I'm not upcharging for this. I'm just serving them. I'm being present. When they say that, or they're borderline between your house and some other home, and you're like, wait, you can paint the home this, and you're going to do a little grass because my kid wants to play soccer outside? Absolutely, right? High rate of
right.
retention and respect doesn't cost a lot to do the little micro details.
And I'm going to ask some more tactical questions. Before I do that, does that show up in your numbers in terms of the number of years a tenant stays with you in terms of renewals, for example? Is that like how do you measure that to see like is it actually showing up in your performance and your
I know that
returns?
you're a numbers guy, and a lot of you people out there are numbers people, and I love numbers too. But guess what? I don't even know how much money I made last year until my accountant gives me numbers. I don't look at, I know what, but my perceived retention is, probably 6 or 7 years legit. I have people that have been there
Six,
for
seven
12
years.
or
Wow.
14. I'm gonna guess, but I don't track those things because I want to spend my time again building relationships, doing things like this to be top of mind mentality and serving my tenants. I'm less in the numbers and more into serving the people.
Yeah, I love that. And Zach, I'm gonna try to make it real for everybody else that's on this call with 1 to 3, 5 to 6, etc. I think you were doing real estate more full time with fix and flip while you started your rentals. A lot of people here, including myself, we have day jobs, right? We've got
Mhm.
different kinds of trades or jobs that we're doing. And so, if we're self-managing, and by the way, I'm also self-managing. I've got a couple of virtual assistants that are working, offshore that help me. I've got some people on the ground. What is your kind of like recommendation for people that are in that situation? Like, obviously, sub a certain scale, it's really hard to afford payroll, right? Like I can't afford to hire 40, $50,000 salary person even, right? Because I
Mhm.
only have about 18 units right now. And so what's your recommendation as people are in this stage trying to grow? How should they be managing that if they are doing self-management?
Well, absolutely. First, my philosophy is different again than most because I've always spend the money to make the money. A lot of people, their biggest mistake in 1 to 3 units or 4 units is they're nervous about spending money. They want to do the typical band-aid. Oh, compressor's out, but the unit's 20 years old. They're like, let's just fix the compressor. My philosophy is do it right the first time. When I acquire a unit, I treat it the same way as I do whether I was going to flip it or retain it. And ideally in this game, hopefully you guys decide to hold this as legacy properties and own for the long term. So what's interesting is my phone doesn't blow up as much as people think. You spent time with me, you saw me for hours. My phone, we
Yeah,
sat there. My phone didn't blow up and go crazy. My tenants all have my numbers. And so the fear is, oh my God, I'm going to get a call at 2 in the morning, or there's a flood or this and that. It's very rare that that's going to happen. Find, first of all, when you're doing it, again, the full surgery mentality as you're growing to create economies of scale is so critical because you've stabilized the asset. It's a really good home. You got new water heaters, plumbing is good. You've checked things. You've done a good job in
right.
stabilizing the asset. So you're less likely to get all these maintenance calls. So it's much
I
easier
see.
to manage.
So that means do the right work with the right scope up front, basically, to
Correct. So
avoid the
find good
surprises.
people, which leads into what I'm saying. So you find really good contractors that are very diligent and maybe even do a thorough inspection to test the work as you're starting out because you don't know how good this contractor is. He's a new contractor, he got referred. Maybe do a full home inspection before someone moves in. Spend that money and test and say, hey, is this up to code? Is this working? And all of a sudden, after a couple of homes, you're going to realize that that contractor did a good job. They were economical. And now you're going to tell that contractor, listen, hey, Joe or Bob or Samantha, whoever your contractor is, I'm looking to grow. And as we're growing, are you interested in maintaining some of my other homes as a la carte, right? You want to utilize your existing resources incrementally as you grow and scale so that people have an opportunity to grow within your organization. So I want to retain those people, give them autonomy and give them help to give them new positions. And then you bring in somebody under them, you incrementally grow as you're vertically integrated. And I've seen people I started with one team, and then from there, those teams split and branched out into two teams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're creating a culture, you're creating opportunity for people to grow. Of course, you don't need a full-time maintenance person, but you can ask your good buddy that has 20 homes, hey man, do you mind if I arbitrage your guy? Maybe you pay him
Right.
$50 an hour. I'll pay you 75 an hour, right? So that they can make 25 on it. It's still better. They serve your properties. So you're not outsourcing to some management company where they're charging $150 an hour and they're making, $50 spread on the 100. So leverage your existing core group of investors to work together or aggregate your purchasing power, just like a lot of people do when they're buying cabinets or materials
That's
or
a
everything else.
that's really smart. I've been actually trying to do that in my area because like even our small landlords, if there's three properties or four properties and you have like five of us, that's all of a sudden 20, 30
Yep,
properties. And getting a plumber to show up for a portfolio of 20 properties and like helping you versus like three, they will show up, right?
exactly. Because now
Um,
you have control over them. Say, I'm affiliated with Zach, or people call me all the time, hey, Zach, do you have a guy for this? And guess what? People are happy to share their guys. You want to know why? Because they're good people and they deserve the right for the referrals. And that's the beauty of this
right.
business. It's a lot about the collaboration aspect. Again, we talk about relationships, which I'll reiterate again. That comes into play to create and grow as your economies of scale. I had help along the way, and it's important to help people on the way up. And if you don't help them on the way up, they're certainly going to see you on the way down.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about self-management and not micromanagement. Like as you have these people that you're finding and deploying,
Yep,
they don't have to be on payroll, is what you're saying, basically. I mean, now we also have virtual assistants, right? I don't know if you use any. I think you're
I
at the
do
scale where
not.
you have a actual person, but everybody on the call here, you can use virtual assistants to literally do a lot of these tasks for you and train them that the way you want to run your business instead of how somebody else is running the business. So that's another hack. Zach, we talked a little bit about the automation. I know that you were more manual in the past. You said like I wish it, had seen Baselane before. Thoughts on technology and systems and stuff like that to
Oh,
use to, avoid this burnout, but also like help people be more strategic and less, grunt work.
yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's about more growth and less grind, which I believe is your motto. And that's what you guys do. I mean, I could tell you that Vicky, my assistant, every Wednesday tomorrow, we've been together for 20 years. And for literally 5 or 6 hours, I have a 35-page rent roll. We go line item by line item. I mean, it's wasted time. So it was just a matter of time until somebody penetrated the market to create a software to streamline the communication. We are manually texting the tenants, hey, did you submit your rent? What's going on? Did you move out? Did you get a what's happening? Again, with this, it streamlines that whole opportunity. Time is money. If I'm so immersed in the forest, I'm not really seeing the trees. And so this enables you to step back and focus on, if you're not acquiring, you're not growing, right? The money's made on acquisitions. It's also made on retention and control. This enables and streamlines the whole process to open up our time to do what serves and puts revenue in the bank. And that's why this is so critical.
And Zach, I want to ask you a little bit from the early days when you were at 10, 20, 30 properties. At that time, did you have help or were you just by yourself in your
So I've
team?
always been by myself, and I was
Okay.
getting burned out straight up because hey, this is crazy. I'm doing fix and flips. I'm using Excel. Now remember, when I started, there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't groups, there was none of this technology.
Yeah.
I mean, I run this from, I'm still writing checks every day because I'm a belly to belly guy for my contractors. I'm out in the field. I'm again relationship person. But this
Right.
only streamlines those relationships. But I spent so much time and energy doing Excels and columns. Here's the house. I went to, spend my credit card at Home Depot and I'm putting it in these columns. I mean, it's crazy. So now the key is again
Yeah.
by being bankable and going to the banks as you're growing and scaling to spit out a rent report or send it over in 30 seconds in a PDF from this is incredible. Before I'm just so I finally decided, going back to your question, I get excited. 10, 12 houses. I'm burned out. I'm up till 2 in the morning doing accounting and I'm doing choosing all the materials. I didn't have any designers. I was running this from the seat of my pants. And so by streamlining this, I can have quicker rents. I outsourced finally to a bookkeeper. That was my first hire, is getting rid of all that stuff out of the plate. Stop worrying about the finances and
Mm.
focus on acquisitions and buying deals. That's the
That's
name of the game.
that's really important because when I talked to you, you told me this, that's how you were doing when we met in person. I was like shocked that you had done it and you just made it through. But the beauty of it is now you have technology. Everybody on this call, you have Baselane. It's literally your bookkeepers, your CFO in your pocket. You can automate all that stuff. And I hadn't really done this yet, but Zach kind of gave me this idea is generate those reports on Baselane. I talked about OPM in the beginning. Why? Because this is all about capital and executing with capital. And if you want to be professional, you can generate those beautiful reports on Baselane and literally take them to these investors and show them what you're doing and
Yeah.
show them that you can multiply it, right? And you look so much more professional. I've got two more questions for you that
I'm
are
going to add
related to the,
something real fast, which
yeah,
is critical. So, right.
yeah,
So, when I was going around doing my, dog and pony show, if you will, what did I do? I literally have my Excel reports. I was taking pictures from my phone, printing it out. I mean, talk about old school. Listen, any system works as long as you work the system, but it's very inefficient. But I utilized the technology or the lack thereof of what I had at the time. I was using PowerPoint presentations on my laptop, flying around. Here you go. Here's the picture of this house. This is the asset. This is the purchase price. Here's my crews working. Here's before, here's after, and here's our reports. Now you could just hop online on an app. I don't need to load my laptop on a plane. I could pull up my phone and show people, here you go. Here's the assets. How much do you want to
right,
invest? Right? Way
right.
faster, real streamline, and better, really good, transparent accounting as well, which is nice.
That's the critical part. Two more tactical questions for self-management. Do you incrementally raise the rent each year generally, and if you have a philosophy on that, what's your percentage? And then how do you generally deal with evictions if you're self-managing?
Yeah. So, in terms of rent, I look at the market. It's a case by case. If I have a really bad tenant and I'm not loving them, and because we all get some bad apples here and there, then I'm more likely to potentially raise the rent, right? So if someone's renting, or giving advice to tenants, treat your landlord with respect. You're giving them all this respect and treat them like family. If you have a bad tenant, you're more likely to probably raise the rent to push them out to find a better person to rent the home. But ideally, again, out of respect for tenants, most of my homes are probably 5 to 10% below market, but I'm also
Okay.
watching the market. What's happening in supply? You want to adapt and pivot by being intimately familiar what's happening in your demographic, in your geographic location. Because all of a sudden, I've had tenants where they've been there for 5 years. I raised around $100. Like, are you kidding me? Why are you doing this? And I'm like, well, I haven't even raised you in 5 years, and you're still 400 below market. But if that's going to be the response, then guess what? It's time for us to part ways. I
It's
still
not the
love you.
right,
I'll write you a nice letter, and that's happened a few times. I literally raised them $100 from 1750, market rent's 2300, and they're like, I'm out. And I'm like, okay, well,
right.
good luck. No hard feelings. I'm always calm, cool, and collective. I never get emotional over it. You may get frustrated, but you never want that to fuel the
Don't get
fire.
emotional.
And guess
Right,
what? I rented that house immediately, for example, for 2300 with a nice new, family. So everything
right.
happens for a reason, but I try and stay right below the
You stay
threshold
with the
for that
market.
high rate of retention.
Got it, got it. And then I saw you had the eviction house on Instagram the other day. How do you manage the eviction? Do you have a lawyer? Like you follow the process? Like,
So
when do you
early
pull the
on, when
trigger?
I was, just again, I still do pretty much everything myself, and I was super small. I want to go through the process. So I usually would file the 5 day notice, the certified hire, someone to certify, deliver the stuff to the tenants, and I would go to court myself. But what I realized was me going to court thinking, hey, my dad was an attorney, and it's this basic stuff.
Yeah,
It's funny because those are just of the peace. They're not even attorneys. They don't even have to have legal backgrounds. They're just hired by the state. It's so
right.
funny how in Arizona, a lot of them just really kind of protect the tenants. I've had issues going in myself. So I highly recommend for
Mm.
people on there to outsource to an attorney because number one, you're waiting in the courtroom and whoever goes first is always the attorneys because they have the list of, they have the
They
respect,
have
the
the
attorneys
docket.
in there and they give them
Yeah,
that. I'm waiting at the back of the line, 2 hours of my time driving to court and sitting there. It's a 4 hour day for a $350 or $400 court eviction. Not a very good return on investment. It's important to
right.
understand it, to be in the mix, maybe do it once yourself, But by all means, I have a really good attorney on retainer that, handles that stuff. You do it properly. And one thing is, you never want to get emotional. You never want to send a nasty text message to the tenant. You don't know what's transpired. I respect everybody. Maybe there's a death in the family or a loss of
Right.
job. You always want to be respectful. It's just a blip in the radar. I treat my real estate portfolio like a stock portfolio. Your stock portfolio doesn't go up every day, but if you're buying in value and good legacy assets, it's just part of the volatility of ownership. So relax. It's going to happen. Don't get over emotional because guess what? If you piss off that tenant that's going through those hardships, there's a greater chance of them A, staying till the last day and not, reasonably giving you the keys peacefully and or potentially distressing the home and beating walls or putting concrete down your drain. So always treat people
Yeah.
with respect. Even if you're mad, it's going to happen. Treat it again like a long-term stock portfolio that you have value. You're blessed. Move on to another tenant.
I love that. And I know we're running behind, but I'm going to ask one more question because it's something that I kind of also want to learn better. In terms of tenant screening, right? You talked about meeting your tenants. What is your approach to tenant screening? Like, I'm assuming you run the reports, but then what are you looking for in the tenant? Do you do anything extra to
Yeah.
verify the tenant is a good tenant?
There's so many intangibles. That's why I love this business. It's not just like, here's what you need to
Yeah.
do, and it's black and white. This
Right.
business is not black and white. It's a complete rainbow. Number one, I want to look somebody in the eye. Typically, if they're lying, they're going to look away from you. Do they
Right.
follow up on the meeting with your realtor or with yourself? Hey, I'm going to be there, Zach, at 2 o'clock. Do they show up at 1:58 or are they there at 2:05? Do they call and saying that they're going to be late? There's microcosms that transpire in the interaction that are real, right? Hey, you represent on the application. Do you have the main things I look at is what's your last 5 years of rental history? Do you have any evictions? Do I have testimonials? I want to look because I have access to all the data. Is this truly the address that you rented? And I'm going to pull the tax records, the name of your landlord.
Mm,
Why does it not match the owner in the tax records?
mm.
Are you
Okay.
related? Are you related to the landlord today? Because of course they're going to give you a great reference. I always say that too. I trick the landlords
Your
when I
uncle?
said, "Hey, Assad is applying for this home. What's your relationship to them?" He's like, "Oh, that's my nephew." Oh, okay, great. Or oh, I don't have any relationship with my tenant. Or I
Yeah.
want verifiable income, right? So I want to see some pay stubs, but I also want to see people's. Give me your last 2 months of your bank accounts so I can see what are you spending your money on. Are you blowing it all on OnlyFans or are you actually paying the rent, right? I mean, it's
I
people
love
laugh,
that.
but it's like you're behind on your rent. Why are you buying, McDonald's 19 times a day? You're eating your way through your rents. So there's
Yeah.
little things that you're looking at.
Can I
But go ahead.
can I ask you a question? I read a book from David Lindhall. I don't know if you read his books, but he what he used to do is he always said this, which people thought was crazy, is he was doing two things, which were like, one, he went to the tenant's current home
To look at
to
the
look
inside.
at
How
how
are
they
you
live.
maintaining it? Yeah.
And number two, he would check out their car because he said, when I walk them by after they come by and I look at their car, it's a very good indicator of how they're going to keep the home. I don't know if you
I
do any
like
of
that.
those kind of things, but
I've asked to say, so if I went to your house right now, or I asked the landlord, would you rent to them again? What's the condition? If I walk the home right now, is it clean? Does it smell bad? Why are they leaving? Did they give you notice? Right?
right,
Sometimes you call them and say, what point did they serve you a 30-day notice of vacating? Because otherwise, they're like, no, I didn't even know that they were moving out. That's not a good sign either when they randomly call and they just give you that advice, that number.
right,
So there's
right.
tactics. But how
And do you
fast do they fill
delegate
out the application? How fast do they
all those
respond to you?
indicators?
All of
Right,
those things aggregate. But also, the other problem is so many people are waiting for this 800 FICO, this perfect tenant. Guess what? There is no perfect tenant because if they were that good, those people are going to own. You have to be
right,
flexible and give people opportunities. I'm always conservative, but I'm also accepting of people that are trying to get out. Those are the people that you want. Those are the people that aren't going to be qualified to buy a home so soon. So I want to work with those people to give them an opportunity and a path towards home ownership. But at least I know
right.
I got them for 3 to 5 years in the interim. Those are your good tenants, not these FICO people that are perfect and have 100,000 plus a year income because they're going to be long gone as soon as there's an opportunity for them to move.
Yeah, I want to just highlight to the audience two things. One, Baselane has a new tenant screening tool, and Zach, you should check it out too. Is it actually has income verification in it and identity verification to prevent fraud.
Mhm.
So it's not just like report your income with a pay stub. We actually have automation that lets you calculate income or verify through a third party connected to their payroll. And then in terms of credit building, which you've talked about several times, like giving them the opportunity to improve and buy the home eventually, I love that. We've actually built a tool where they can build their credit. Now, tenants can, by paying rent on time on Baselane, they can build up to, I think it's about 100 points in their credit score.
That's
And
huge.
so
I
it's a
love that.
super cheap service, like $5 a month, and landlords benefit from it, and your tenants should be using it to build up their credit scores over time. One more question. I'm going to keep going on the property management because I'm getting a lot of questions on property management. I know we had plans for other things, but I'm kind of just going by the audience. If you are out of state, and this is a tricky one because I know you're more in state and like you know your local market, you're there. I'm also out of state, by the way. How do you recommend this whole tenant screening? Like, if we're not able to meet the tenants, like, is there another way to do this that you've seen people do really well?
Again, I coach and I teach. We had this conversation. I'm so adamant about controlling the assets. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these properties, if not more, and you got to be present. You got to walk them. You got to see them. I don't, believe someone's going to be completely honest. They're only showing me the good of the home when you're acquiring it if you're out of state. But I guess the
Right.
only way to mitigate that, to answer your question, is I want to FaceTime them. Let me FaceTime. Let
Mm,
me get some sort of energy exchange. Look them in the eye. Say, hey, I'm Zach. I'm the actual owner of the property, so you know who you're dealing with. I want to be comfortable with you, and I love this, and I want you to be comfortable with me. I want you to know I'm not just some big hedge fund that owns the property, and I'm going to give you my direct number, and you can FaceTime me, you can call me. I really want to get to know you. Again, take the different approach. Don't treat them like a phone number, an annuity of income. Treat them like family. I want to get to have that energetic exchange so people feel comfortable. Oh, now I met that person. Notice how you feel when you meet somebody in person versus not. Like last night, I held a
oh,
networking event and my
yeah.
assistant met all the title ladies, and they're like, oh, you're that person. Oh, you're that person. It lowers the barriers, right? And it makes people
Right.
feel comfortable. So you're renting
Yeah.
out a multiple $100,000 asset. They want to feel comfortable, make sure it's not a fraud, and you want to feel comfortable and make sure they're not a fraud.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really helpful. For the audience, I'm going to pivot a little bit. I think we're going to talk a little bit about smart renovations because it's related to self-management and it helps kind of that flywheel of keeping maintenance low. And then, if you guys want to stay over, and Zach, if you have another 5-10 minutes, we'll do the deal analysis still because I wanted to have Zach show that to you guys because I think that's really important about how you identify the right asset because it's all about the asset and it's an entirely different business if it's multi-unit versus single family versus whatever, right? So when we talk about all these things, it is relevant that we're talking about single family. So I'm going to skip ahead here. There are some questions we had related to, what should you be doing in terms of renovations, repairs, fix up before you rent the property out. And Zach, how do you think about that? Because I know it's specific to your market with the central air units, you're in Arizona and all of that. But what's your philosophy on what renovations you do when you have a rental, whether you buy it or you're about to, flip it into a rental?
Yeah, so like I said, my strategy pretty much for both, whether I'm flipping or holding long term. So I'm a contingency guy, and it's really important. If you're gonna flip something, it's always important to have a contingency plan. If the market shifts, another COVID outbreak, and you get stuck with that asset, are you gonna be happy to own it? I call that a legacy property. So, in
Hmm.
my opinion, I don't think you buy something that you're not happy by default if you ended up owning for a couple years or for a lifetime and passed it on for generational wealth. So that's number one to mitigate something. Number two, I always want to do what's conforming for the neighborhood. Clearly, I'm not going to take a $300,000 house and put in $2 million finishes because that doesn't conform to the neighborhood. I'm looking to
Right,
see for the most recent. I mean, this business is not rocket science. That's why it's beautiful and anyone can come in it. But I want to see what did the highest comp sell for? How fast did it sell? And typically, leverage that as a cheat code. See what they've done. If they didn't do dual pane windows, if they didn't do the new roof, if they don't have some crazy landscaping and they got X amount of dollars, let that be your cheat code and your roadmap to what you need to do because the appraiser is going to look at that one as your comparable. So if you overspend and you put in 30,000 in landscaping, you're only getting $6,000 out. That's a bad investment, right? You want to look at your
right,
ROI on each incremental investment and let your top two or three comps dictate what you're going to do or what you're not going to do.
right,
Conversely, again, if you're planning on owning it long term, there's certain things you have to do. Like, yeah, I see so many people, they just start tiling surrounds in tubs, but they don't do an underground camera check to look at the plumbing. Again, my mentality is I plan on
mm,
owning this for a long term. You're spending all this money to go up the wall, but you didn't even pull out the tub or camera to make sure the lines are good. They're going to end up pulling it out again and cost yourself a lot of money because you didn't look what's underneath, the skin. Let's do a blood test before we diagnose you with whatever you think that you're feeling so that we
right,
can do the proper medication. Same thing in real estate. Let's properly, evaluate and do our due diligence on the asset, and then come in there and do the proper surgery. So I'm
Yeah.
typically doing all new bathrooms, new kitchens, countertops, because again, long term, I care about brand. I don't mind overspending a little bit because one, I can ask a little bit more for rent, so I get a good ROI, especially for a rental property. But when somebody knows a Zach home, they're like, there's a certain level of expectation. Agents are more apt to show it. Tenants are more apt to
Mm,
refer the other people. It's like,
right.
well, going again back to the 5-star Yelp reviews. What are you doing in your asset classes to create that 5-star memorable experience for retention, for engagement, for growth and activity? Agents don't want to go show 100 homes. They want to show the top homes they know the clients are going to be emotionally invested in. And sometimes if
Right.
you're just doing a separate, a coat of paint and a different color because you have an accent wall, that costs you nothing. Spend a little bit more time on doing these little design things to value engineer that emotional experience that doesn't cost that much.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds like you talked a little bit about this before, like you know your rent numbers, so you don't overspend in the
Hmm.
neighborhood, but
Yep.
you're also doing the smart renovations to avoid the futuristic, you know, the unavoidable maintenance issues that will come up
Sure.
if you don't do it now.
Yep.
That's helpful. I've paid for this. Like I had a tree on a property in the front. I didn't realize that that tree was so old that it probably destroyed the plumbing line in the front yard. $10,000 later, right?
I wish you
Um,
would have called me. I could get that done for 4. No, I'm just kidding. I don't
right.
even know the market.
But like these kind of things you learn over time, but more things to look for up front to avoid those mistakes, and also how you underwrite. There's a
Real
couple
fast,
of
another thing, this is
yeah,
really important. A lot of people, they're so sensitive, they're so worried about, I can't hit over a my budget is 20,000 on this house. So they go to the tile store and they choose the 82-cent tile versus, I mean, the home is, let's call it 1,500 square feet. And for 70 cents more, let's call it $1.50, there's a much better tile that's going to look better. But you're so budget sensitive in your mind, you think you're saving money when in reality you're losing money. It's probably a ceramic. It's not going to be durable. What if you would have spent that incremental, a little bit more amount of money, or a backsplash
right.
where you're talking about 40 or 50 square feet and you buy a $5 a square foot tile, but it has a huge impact? You want to pick and choose where you're spending a little bit more money, and it doesn't really cost you that much more in the end to create a beautiful branded, emotional experience, desirable home.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Zach, there's a couple of questions, so I want to start integrating these into my thing. And do you have a few more minutes, or do you have to jump at the?
For you, I've delegated,
Thank you so much.
Vicky, remove the rest of the afternoon. Yeah,
All right, guys, get dinner ready.
there you go.
There's a question around your entity structures. I mean, now you have a larger portfolio. Maybe when you were 10, 20, was it different in terms of LLC versus not, multiple LLCs, LLC per property? How do you set that up? And then insurance wise, what's your go-to rental property insurance, policy that you work on, that you employ for your properties?
So I have a trust, and the trust owns my LLC, and I have multiple LLCs. But what's going to happen is once you go in to get leverage from banks, they only want a loan to one basic LLC. So if you had
Right,
50 LLCs and you aggregated those homes for a loan, the bank's going to say, I'm going to need you to quit claim them all into one because they're not going to start doing loans to 50. Number one.
right,
Number two, your tax return would be so expensive. I get that you want to mitigate risk in terms of some sort of potential lawsuit or whatnot. My philosophy in terms of all these lawsuits and whatnot, and I've had 23 years, knock on wood, no problems. Because if you're doing always the right thing and you're doing good work and you're transparent and you're always over disclosing stuff, you can mitigate a lot of that. People that are scared and they have this hope, I hope that they don't sue me. That hope is not a strategy. That's just a wish. So control
right,
the controllables, do good work, serve your people. Again, that goes back to having good relationships with tenants. If you have an amazing relationship with somebody, they don't want to sue you. They want to see you
right.
win, just like you want to see them win. So it's more in the mentality, right, of the structure in your relationships with these people, and less in these entities. Sure, if you want to be extremely conservative, one home, one LLC, one tax return, 300 bank
Right.
accounts. Do you know how laborious that
Expensive
would be?
tax
It would
return.
be insane. It's
Yeah.
not cost effective.
Do you so I actually agree with that. I have the same philosophy. I've gotten similar kind of legal advice, frankly, too, but also like tax related. But
Yeah.
then on the insurance side, do you do like a portfolio policy or umbrella policy or
I
anything like
have a
that?
commercial policy with an umbrella as well. The beautiful
Okay.
thing is on a commercial policy, you add and subtract online. You know, every day you could buy one or two or three houses. You simply throw up the addresses. You have 30 days to insure, you know, it automatically covers you for the first 30 days. I do keep a high deductible, and that's one of my strategies, right? You don't want to
Okay.
make all these claims. Your portfolios, the cost is going to be insane. My deductible is 10,000. So basically I'm insuring a fire,
Right.
an earthquake, which we don't
So
really have,
disasters. Right.
a major roof, things like that. And the big thing is liability. Someone trips and falls, a guest of
Right.
somebody. That's the big stuff. And insurance is expensive. But again, you typically, a lot of the things that someone make a claim for, they're easily treatable and they're not that expensive. So to save money, I would encourage people to have a high deductible, and you only want to employ the insurance or make the call on something that's pretty catastrophic.
Yeah, that makes sense. And by the way, like plug for the audience here, like we actually have a great partnership with OB. OB is an insurance provider. You can get a quote in 3 minutes. You can get binded in 5 minutes. And if you're scaling, they do a portfolio policy too. I've got all my rental insurance with OB, so check them out. Zach, I want to get to the final segment a little bit here. Related to property management, we had this kind of story here that, you're going to Colombia next month. So as you go away, now you're not there. Like, what's going on back home? Like, who's managing your properties? What's the systems you have in play that are helping you just keep things, running smoothly while you're not there?
Sure. So I think I've done a really good job of building an amazing culture, right? I've got my contractors, I've got a full-time handyman now, again, vertical integration, and my assistant, Vicky. So all the tenants, they could reach out to my assistant. They could get my handyman out there. I can check, I am check in with FaceTime. I run my whole business from this phone, and that's the beauty of
Yeah.
technology and great relationships. So people, I think, overanalyze, or they have this perception that you have to be here to do it. The beauty is I can underwrite. I'm so familiar with the market. Is I could look at any deal from anywhere. And in fact, I was in Aruba recently with my mom and my sisters, and I bought two homes when I was there, sight unseen,
Oh
because I
wow.
know the
Oh, you
people
know
that
your
sent them
market.
to me. I know my market. So the business continues on. There's no stopping. Doesn't matter what time zone, what area. Again, by being intimately familiar with the market, what's going on, and then also giving your people, this is so important. I, yes, I write a lot of checks, but I also speak a lot and I engage my handyman and my contractors, and I give them an autonomy and trust. People love that and they give that mutual respect. If you're always micromanaging, you're always in this business so much, you can't really grow because you're just trying to control people. I love my people. In fact, they're smarter than me. My handyman, the contractors know more about construction. So why would I tell them when we walk a house? I always ask them, if this was your house, what would you do, right? And you
Right.
train your handyman, hey, if this was your home, how fast are you going to respond? They're like, I'm going to get there immediately. I'm going to call and communicate. It's all
Right.
basic stuff that when you train the people well, they're going to do an excellent
They're
job,
gonna
giving
show
them
up.
autonomy and authority to make good decisions.
Yeah, I've got one more question, then we have our surprise thing that I wanted to announce with
Sure.
everybody. So Zach, like again, you remember the poll. There's lots of people here with 1 to 3 properties, 4 to 10 properties. That was a majority of people on this call
Yeah.
that are listening in. What should be our roadmap? Like if you were there in our situation right now, what do you recommend that we do, to get to that scale of 10 properties, the 20 properties, and so on?
Sure. So again, playing the long game, delayed gratification, the theme of today, I would again think about what is restricting you from growing. Is it opportunities? Are you not seeing enough deals and you're just, you have money sitting liquid and you can't deploy, or you don't have money? It's one of two things: lack of
Right.
capital or lack of deal flow or bankability, right? So that goes into
Mm,
the money factor. So I would be very strategic on enhancing my banking relationships and asking them, okay, here's my current assets. I know I saw some questions. I'm looking off the right and being attentive to you. Hey, my interest rate is so low. Why would I refi now? Well, maybe you can get a HELOC on a second, or you cross collateralize some other ones, and a bank will put a second note on some of those.
right.
Or maybe you sell them because there's so much equity and you could redeploy because there's a shift in the market and buy a better, ROI type assets, and dollar cost average. If you've seen great long-term appreciation is another strategy. You've got all these great deals, but you're tied up in your existing portfolio, but you have all this untapped equity. Well, hey, can you arbitrage that? Can you sell, or could you refinance or get a HELOC against it or
Get a
commercial
HELOC.
line of
Yeah.
credit to go buy new assets to create value, right? Every time I ask myself some simple questions. When I'm buying a new asset, what happens to my net worth, right? Hopefully it
Mm,
goes up. If it doesn't go up, you shouldn't be buying that. A lot of people get fixed on, hey, I'm paying retail, but I'm getting a 7% return. Isn't that great? No, not really, because
right,
if you had to sell that asset tomorrow, you would lose because there's commissions, there's closing costs, there's carrying costs, and all that stuff. So you want to be diligent about what you're acquiring and making sure that you're buying deep. If you're stuck and you can't get the banking capital, figure out a roadmap to become bankable or leverage your current income, right? Maybe you get a promotion. Hey, I can qualify for another couple 100,000 and add another home to the portfolio.
right.
And if you
You can
add
get
that home to the
DSCR.
portfolio and you have enough equity, you could do a DSCR loan on there based on rents. So the beauty of equity, so many people, don't respect the equity play as much as or don't, appreciate the importance of the equity because equity is everything. With equity, you can effectively refinance these deals. Every time you buy a new one, you refinance it, you get pretty much, 80% or 90% or sometimes 100% of your original investment out to go buy a new deal and or find a
That
great capital partner to joint venture with. There's so much abundance of sedentary money, people sitting in bonds, in money markets, and equities that's not giving them the control and yield that they want. We are the human capital. We are the intermediaries between the deals and the money and leverage it, embrace it, utilize this technology to showcase and boast about, hey, I built this portfolio. I'm going to do this 10 times over and I'm looking for the right partners. Would you like to
right.
invest with me? Very
Yeah,
simple.
and take a screenshot from your Baselane financials, put it in a deck.
Boom. Boom.
It'll work all day. And so yeah,
Yes.
I think like that you just laid out like 7, 8 different ways to get funding, right? So there are many different ways. Other people's money, DSCR, HELOCs, and so on. I dropped a link for some of the lenders that we work with, by the way. They're very consultative, will help you talk through deals too, so you can go ahead and apply and check it out. I think like you should explore all options, local banks,
Of
DSCR.
course.
We just launched a product with HELOC, which is backed by Figure, and then it's closed in 5 days, and you can get like a crazy amount of money really fast on your equity. There's tons of ways to do that. Basically, like I think we've covered that already. Um, I do want to get to the final kind of surprise that we had that we wanted to offer everybody, which is a new contest that we're launching. But Zach, I know we talked about a bunch of other things. We'll probably have to have you come back and talk about the deal analysis. We didn't get to that today. So I
It's
want to be
okay.
respectful of your time, and so maybe we'll do that another time and dive in. But is there any sort of anything else, Zach, that you wanted to share with folks as they're listening to you? Parting words before we share the surprise.
Um, Again, recap, I'm grateful to have met you and your associate at the Growth House. Shout out to Jesse and those guys, amazing. Um, Never be complacent and, constantly show up, embrace every opportunity, get uncomfortable to get comfortable, right? If you're sitting there every day and you're like, hey, I'm not growing and scaling, but you're not doing anything to grow and scale, look in the mirror and come to the realization, I want to be proactive versus reactive. I want to be top of mind mentality. Every day I wake up in my mind with the broke mentality. I'm going to go hunting. I'm a deal junkie. What can I do today to acquire a deal or raise more capital or be top of mind for somebody to bring me a deal in the future? Those, I guess,
Right.
are my parting words in terms of, the energy and the mindset of what you need to embrace. And again, going back for simplicity, what are you doing in your business and in your life to bring your best energy, to bring that 5-star Yelp experience in everything that you do? Because the energy is magnetic for opportunities and having fun. And I guess lastly, again, this is an amazing business. And yes, it can be serious and it is serious, but it can also be so much fun. And you want to slow down and have fun and joke around. Don't be robotic. Embrace your natural, personality and just have a good time with it when you're relaxed and you're joking and having fun, differentiating yourself. Good things are going to come your
What I think is a true masterclass of insight from Zach on how to think about the business, how to run the business, how to scale the business. We'll bring him back for more. Maybe I'll go to Arizona next time and hang out with him in person when we do that one. And yes, Zach, thank you so much. And we'll be in touch with you again soon, hopefully.
Hey, appreciate the opportunity. Amazing organization, great guy, and we'll continue the collaboration. Best of luck to all you landlords out there. Reach out if you have more questions. I'm happy to serve your community anytime.
Thank you so much, everybody. All right, have a good night. Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Thank you.